Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ayuk. Welcome. You speak with my Mansourian from EBID. Please proceed. This is your workshop, and we're all waiting to learn eagerly from you.
Maigan, thank you so much. I want to really start by apologizing to everyone. I think on the discussions we have about entrepreneurship, possibly the first aspect of entrepreneurship should be not coming late, and also not being able to be very tech savvy. I have been struggling with computers on how to connect to this, but it is indeed an honor, especially when we have to have this discussion. So I'll do a very brief introduction and a small discussion, and I think I would love to really have a more interactive approach on this with questions and answers. I got involved in entrepreneurship maybe because I was broke, and also because I felt like I could drive a few key issues that I didn't see when working with the public sector. I was very lucky to get a great education in the United States, went to the University of Maryland, then later on went to Will Mitchell College of Law, and then did an MBA in New York. But I was starting my career working with the United Nations. And one of the key things which I realized was we kept trying to solve a lot of problems that was just always coming back to us in another program. And when you look at African youth and a lot of young people across the continent, you keep seeing a longing for big solutions. One of my biggest supervisors told me, if you want to create a new app, go to Africa, because there's just so much challenges that when you see it, you start to think about how you create new solutions and everything. And that's what got me into energy. And starting off in the energy sector, honestly, I knew nothing. I never studied oil and gas in law school. I never studied oil and gas in undergrad. To be honest, I hated the oil industry and never liked it. I thought they were the bad guys. But the more I got into it, I started to realize Africa's problem comes with its natural resources, but Africa's solution can come out of how we harness that and build that and be able to drive that. And that got me working in oil and gas. I founded a law firm that we built and made it become the first African professional service firm to be listed in a European stock exchange. And as God would get you do things at the end of last year, I stepped down as the CEO of the firm and passed it on to other really young people that I believe can carry the firm forward and drive that vision that was created. But when I created Centurion Law Group, now CLG, we had an idea that we just going to drive entrepreneurship, and we're going to do what we've seen our counterparts do across the world, but we're going to do it well. We're going to do it across Africa, and we're going to get Africans really believing that you're not just going to practice, but you're going to look at the business of law. You're going to look at how you drive business, how you carry it forward, but also how you train people and how you plan succession. And I thought it was really proper at the age of 44 to really have a succession to something that you build. That's also something that you never see with African, especially Africa or anything we have. Most people, even at the age of 70, they still struggle to step down. You see it with leadership in our public institutions and even our private institutions. But we need to always plan to say, when do you quit? So by the time you start, you always have to have a plan for when you quitting. And that comes with that building that business plan and saying, we need to have a business plan and how we drive it. And I cannot emphasize that a lot, because one of the key things I've seen with a lot of young entrepreneurs is not willing to have a business plan. You just believe in this idea and you think you're going to drive it. But there's some key tenets that are really important. Your research, looking at markets, looking at how you get finance. Financing is one of the biggest challenge that you would face, because We have not really been able to build a really thriving banking sector that can really look at entrepreneurs, especially young people, and not just give them capital, but patient capital. Because when you have patient capital, it gives you a chance to be able to really work with that entrepreneur, drive that. Again, when I've seen other businesses that I've invested in where my biggest advisors were my bankers. So build that relationship with the bank, get that business plan in place, and they will try to help you execute that, and you drive forward. Today, I kind of run the African Energy Chamber. It's an amazing opportunity to work in energy, be it oil and gas, be it renewables. There is so abundant opportunities with 600 million Africans without access to electricity. Imagine what you can do if you are able to connect, whether it is gas to power projects or sell equipment to them, or even work with, let's say you work with renewables, getting solar mini grids into small communities. That is an amazing opportunity in the energy sector. And those that are able to go right big into developing new things and everything, it is a sector that is going to really shape Africa, shape the world, whether you like it or not. We need energy is life. You know, the old Greek saying, Greek word, energia, that means movement and going through. And so if you have energy, then you have industrialization, then you have education, then you have healthcare, then you have all of that, because you can't power a ventilator without electricity. So energy sector has been very, very intriguing for me, especially a lawyer, a guy who went to school to study to become a human rights lawyer. Like when I still think of it, it chuckles me sometimes. And I've just been, I wouldn't say lucky, because there's a part of luck in it, but there's that grade of hard work. You need to really have that belief and that opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. this morning and I'm going to do it. And part of also is having that self-discipline that comes into driving a business. I still get up in the morning. I still do my workouts. I still do pull up late night hours. I still find a chance to get my workout. I hate working out. I really do, but I bet it's like medicine. I need it. And I think that's part of entrepreneur, that drive, that state. You're going to do the things that it's not fun, it's not pleasure, but you have to drive it. But then you have to also look at opportunities. And one of the key things which I love so much with what I do at the Energy Chamber is opening up doors and opening up opportunities for a lot of, especially young Africans that really want to be part of the energy industry, providing advice to them, guiding them, getting them mentors, getting them to network, because the truth of the matter is that you have to lead that next generation that is going to drive African energy. So I'm going to stop here, and I'll be open to take any questions, because I think your questions are actually more important than the things I have to say. So thank you, Megan, and I'll be open to any questions or specifics. I hope I have some answers.
I don't see any questions currently. If anybody have any questions to ask. So, Mr. Ayub,
Yes.
the fact that you're an entrepreneur, you have started a few businesses. If you can just give us some tips for young people who are venturing out into the world, who wants to start a business, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in energy, whether it's in IT. Like, what are the tools that we need? What information that do we need? For example, for you to have a good business, of course, it starts with a good idea. But then for you to be able to get investment from investors, you need a good business plan. So what advice would you give to us? Like, what information do we need to include in our business plans? What should we be thinking about? And how can we get somebody who can invest in our businesses for somebody who, in most of our cases, we do not have assets to provide as guarantees. So if you can just share with us based on your experience, some of these questions as a young person coming up to you, just say, please share with me some useful information, some useful tips of how do I get my business off the ground?
You know, there is nothing so powerful than an idea that sticks with you, then you put action to it. It means that idea's time has come. I always say research is the first thing. Do your homework. Do your research. It is so important because at the end of the day, there is one thing that you're going to see, your bottom line, which is going to be return on investment. So if you get your homework done, then your business plan would reflect that this business plan is a plan where, for example, if when I read business plans of young entrepreneurs that come to us for investments or anything, I want to make sure that you know what you're talking about because this is about money at the end of the day. It's not about feelings. So you got to do your homework. But once you get your homework done and you include the key things in a business plan, like you could write whatever nice, fancy stuff that of what this can do in a business plan. That's good. But you have to also understand that business or entrepreneurship is not a social project. You can do impact investment, even impact investments are not social projects. It's not a charity. You have to always be able to put what business people want to see, their bottom line, return on investment. Where you have to have a path to return in your investment. You have to have a pathway to profitability because anytime, whether it's a venture capital, whether it is just friends and families, and let's just bring it back home. If we bring it home and you go to your dad or your mama or your cousin or your brother, and you say, listen, I need $20,000 to start a small business. The first thing they're going to ask is like, when am I going to get my money back? And how do I get my money back? So you have to always put that in the bottom of your mind and in your plan that any plan I'm building, I am building a pathway for how someone gets their money back because that's what it is. And your business plan doesn't just have to go with passion, what you love to. That is good, but passion doesn't take you to the bank. It is going to be your numbers. You have to show that you know your market. So if you're doing agriculture, and let's say you want to get involved in selling tomatoes, you have to know how, you have to do so much work to know how much tomatoes is being purchased in this community or in this city. You want to show how do you differentiate yourself with every other tomatoes that is being sold in this city? And how are you going to bring tomatoes? And you have to be consistent. And if you go there and it's well detailed in your business plan, and at the end you say, by doing these things, I'm going to differentiate myself to the competition whom I've studied the competitions. I see I see what they're doing right or what they're doing wrong. And here's my solution. And here's how I'm going to do better. And I have a plan to do better. And here's my plan on how I'm going to, you show a plan and a pathway to execution and how you're going to put that into it. What's the team you have around you? Because at the end of the day, you taking this lump, you become a leader. But you cannot be a leader without a team that helps you to lead. But also, you also have to be able to serve because you can't lead the people that you cannot serve. So you're going to serve, you're going to lead, but really, really do your best to put a lot of really smart people around you. Don't be scared of people who tell you you're right or you're wrong. For me personally, I'm more worried about those who tell me I'm right. I like those who tell me I'm wrong because I know they at least they've listened or they've read or they have something to say. Those kind of people you pay attention to. You don't need yes men when you're going to find money.
Thank you so much about that. So just to summarize, according to you, for a good business plan for a startup company, what investors are looking for, first of all, you need to know your market. You need to do research. Secondly, you need to be able to differentiate yourself from your competitors. You have to offer something different or innovative. Thirdly, you said that you also have to have a good implementation plan, how you want to roll out your business, what it is that you want to do, where it is that you want to go, And then fourthly, you said you also have to have a good team. A good team would help you to get to will start up your business and have a successful business. If I'm correct, those are
That's
the
right.
ways that I got from your summary.
Maiga, you said it better than me. That's right. I see Prince on the with his hand up.
Yes. So please, Prince, and then there's also a question from Sunita. Well, we'll take Prince's question first, and then we can address Sunita's question in the chat box. Prince, please go ahead. Prince, can you unmute your microphone?
Okay, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ayu. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Prince Kwesi Nkrumah from Ghana. From your presentation, I was then going to ask about strategic partners, because for where I'm coming from, what I learned is that yes, you may have the business plan, you may have the idea, but for instance, myself and two others, we want to set up a business. I'm coming from a logistics and an operational background. The other two, one is coming from marketing, and the other one is coming from an oil and gas space. So we have come together to form a group to partner so that we'll tap into each niche. But for we Africans, we always want to do things on our own. That's will probably will let the company or the organization that you are setting up will collapse in the next 5 years. So, Mr. Ayu, I want to find out from you, is it good an idea to partner, to have a strategic partner when you are setting up a company? Thank you.
I always think it's not a bad idea to have a strategic partner or a technical partner. And you have to always ask yourself what they bring to the table. And the other thing we have to be very careful is that not everybody has to be called CEO. Not everybody has to be called president. You can't have too many drivers. So you need to be able to cut your egos and really get down to working with other people that can lift you up. And you ask yourself this, 100% of 1 million, what is that? And the next question is 20 or 30% of 1 billion. I rather prefer 20 or 30% of 1 billion. So you're going to be able to partner with other people who bring some stuff in, and you have to always focus on that. What value added proposition do they bring to your business? What is that thing that they bring that you don't have? Give you an example. Okay, let me stick to energy, something I know very well. Some of the technologies that you're going to need to drive the energies of tomorrow, we don't have it in this continent. So sometimes you might have to be able to partner with a colleague from Europe or from America, from Asia, from the Middle East, where they have these technologies, or they have other historical partners that have these technologies, and then you work with them. But also there is also another sense of partnership that you could see that really bring value, in a sense that if you're running logistic operations, being able to move, whether it is port or port clearance, and being able to use some of the technologies that could fast track how you do stuff or everything, it makes sense. It would really help you. I give you a good example. In Ghana, just right when the oil industry started in Ghana around 2008, 2009, there was a lot of activities. A lot of Ghanaian players wanted to get a logistic contract, but then they were too small to win the big contract. So the contract ended up going to a big mega European company. Now, if you had those Ghanaians had teamed up together, they would have been stronger to be able to execute the work and get that done. So don't be scared to partner, but also you want to really ensure that all the partners that you're bringing in, you guys, the vision is aligned, that you guys know exactly where you're going. So you got to check the vision of your partners, because at the end of the day, it is going to be a long-term game. So you really have to ensure that you all are on the same boat. And once you have that and you find that synergy, then that partnership is destined to work, and everybody's going to bring in that. But also be willing to write on a piece of paper every person's rights and responsibilities, because partnerships can go really, really bad sometimes. It can, but you have to manage it. But the first question you got to ask is, what are your rights? What are your responsibilities? Put it on a paper, and then you're able to come right back and remind each other about what their duties are. It's the same thing like having a job where you have KPIs. Those are very, very important things, and you should be able to deal with that.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Ayuk. I think for me, if I can just take you a bit back, because talking from a startup point of view, let's say even if I'm in the work, I'm already working. What should I regard apart from just knowing the industry, knowing my market? What are the first, like, the concrete steps that
I can't hear your question very well. Can you repeat the question?
Sorry, I asked you that as a startup, somebody who's starting up, I'm already, even whether I'm a graduate fresh out of university, or whether I am currently employed but want to venture out into the business field. What are the steps that I need to take? Yes, you had mentioned that I need to know my market, but let's say I might not be necessarily passionate. That you want to take, please.
I missed you on the word passion. When you after passionate, can you just continue after passionate?
Yes, as I said, what are the initial steps that I need to take apart from just knowing the market that I want to go into? And let's say I might not necessarily know who I need to partner with. I don't have that knowledge yet because I'm still very much green in terms of business and starting a business. So what steps do I need to take to lead me to go to an investor, and then after even acquiring initial maybe startup capital? Like, what if you can help walk me and walk us through the steps that we will need to take when starting a business?
First thing is, your passion is good, but we don't eat your passion. From a guy who invests in many other businesses, I love your passion. It's great. But at the end of the day, I want to make money. So we just have to be honest. You know, at the end of the day, it's about making money. But then you don't just walk right into me and say, wow, you know, I'm really passionate about ice cream, and so I want you to give me money so I should run an ice cream shop. That's very nice, but you know, yes, but you're trying to do an ice cream business in a place where it's very cold. Nobody eats ice cream during with cold weather. But now if it's in Africa, it's warm. Some people might like ice cream. But there is a step-by-step process. That's why we discussed in the past that let's work on a business plan. There are key tenets inside a business plan. You look at demographics, markets, operations, implementations, investments. You can't skip those core tenets of a business plan. That's why it's called a business plan. You can't skip it. You can't try to, there are no shortcuts in it, because very few people have been successful who went the shortcut ways. Now, if you have money, if you're a trust fund baby, or daddy has a lot of money to just write you a check, then good, you could do that. But if you're going to use other people's money, if you are really going to put your own money, there are no shortcuts for hard work. You need to emphasize that business plan. You need to also build a network, because at the end of the day, I invested in a business where one of the key things which the guy asked me, he didn't ask me for money. He asked me, say, you come invest. I was willing to put in money, but so I said, stop. I need more your network more than your money. Because at the end of the day, what is that network that you have around you that is going to drive you? Because your network at the end, it becomes your net worth. So you need to be able to look at that network and you say, how can I monetize this network to be able to drive me and bring a lot more to the table? And you will be surprised how much much people around you are willing to help, or how much people around you are willing to connect with you with some other business, some other person that can throw in ideas or bring you new business. But I would really guard against trying to sidestep the core tenets of building the right kind of business plan to launching a business. That path towards launching a business is so important. It helps you to avoid a lot of pitfalls. But then if you go into any credible investor, they are the first thing going to ask you, where's the plan? Where is the plan? You know, if you don't have a plan, don't waste my time. There are no shortcuts. You're not going to skip through the line just because of you're passionate about something. And while you still have a job and you're thinking about going in there, that might be a good time for you to really, really use your evenings, get yourself disciplined, because if you go in just with passion and you have no plan, then you might not be able to really execute when it's time. So when you have a plan, you have a guard, and you say, yes, I'm going to execute. It's like a soccer game. If you go into a soccer game, you always watch the coach. Before the game starts, the coach has a plan, and he ensures that he puts the right team that's going to execute. So I would really guide against just trying to jump in without proper planning. You know, preparation prevents frustration.
Okay. Thank you very much on that. You touched on something which is about accessing financing, because you said, well, if you're a trust fund baby, somebody who's fortunate enough to come from a wealthy family and has ample of resources available to them, but in well, for I will say majority of people, unfortunately, they do not have that opportunity. Hence why and especially don't have job opportunities. That's why, especially in West Africa, you see a lot of young people are going into starting their businesses, going into entrepreneurship. I have a message from Kyle. So he's asking, like, what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs to build solid relationship with bankers and investors? Because you also mentioned about your network. So how do you even break into get access to those network? If somebody doesn't know the likes of you, who can open up those doors and open those opportunities to meet this type of people, like, how do we get access to the likes of bankers and investors to even listen to our ideas?
I'll tell you two things. You'll be very surprised. You just walk into your local bank, your community bank, and ask for that meeting and start having that conversation. You'll be very surprised that they will talk to you. You might not get the answer you want, but it might point you somewhere. But also what I really encourage is that if you live, let's say you live in a city like Accra, or you live in Lagos, or you live in Dakar, or you live in Freetown, there's going to be some healthcare conference or healthcare function. There's going to be some networking function. Please go. And when you go, stay away from the wine glass or the beer. Focus on the people, and don't be scared to talk to everybody there. Have your card, your business card ready, or just be willing to go in there, introduce yourself, and engage people. You'll be surprised how many people would really want to hear your story. And you know what? It's not always about you. It's also about we just want to ask that poignant questions like, sir, I'm here, I'm new, ma'am, I'm here, I'm new. I want to know about you. What do you do and how did you get there? By starting that discussion, people then get elated and say, oh, I'm this person, this is how I got here. It's not been all hunky-dory, but also there is a path towards success, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to show a path towards success. But be very clear to look for those conferences, networking events, doesn't matter how big or how small. I remember going to some ones where I was the last person to be let in, but I just kept staying at it. And if you keep staying at it and you go into those networking functions, you'll be so surprised how much depth, how much network, and how much you get out of there. But don't make it always about you. Try to have the other guy talk with you. Don't just go in there and starting right from the beginning and tell them this is what I want to do. It's all about me. You don't walk that way. Go listen, but I'll really advise you stay away from the alcohol, because I remember I had a young man who started working. I was with us. We took him to a function, and he had all these big important people around him. And the first thing he did was he went to the bar and he got himself the most expensive wine and glass of wine. It sends the wrong message. You can't be trying to be here to ask me for money, and you drinking the most expensive wine. That tells me also something like that. I don't know what you want to invest in. Okay, now if you trying to invest in a winery, but there's one thing they always say: the barman shouldn't drink his own alcohol, because he might not sell it well. So I would advise in going to those networking functions. It would help a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe that Sunita, that also answers your question. Based on your experience and your expertise, are there any particular sectors, industries that are flourishing in the African continent and West Africa, or are there any sectors and industries that investors are more interested in investing? Because that also helps, because at the end of the day, we all want to start a business that is successful. We don't want to start a business in a field, in an industry that is not booming. So is there any insightful information that you can give us to help direct us in the right field, in the right industry?
Are you trying to ask for trade secrets? Okay, I'll tell you, but you keep it quiet. I still think energy has a big role. The first thing you have to look at it is that when you have 600 million people without access to electricity, anybody that can do anything about that, it's going to be a billionaire. When you have 900 million using biomass, they have to cut wood to cook. Imagine that 900 million people in Africa don't have access to clean cooking. Anything you do around that, you're going to make a lot of money, and you're going to be very successful. But also, it's also who we are, as because you're also going to leave a big legacy and a big impact. But then if you look at the logistics area, one of the key things in Africa today is our infrastructure deficit. Imagine being able to take medicine from large urban centers, moving them into rural areas where it is so needed. Big business going in there around infrastructure, transportation. You just have to be efficient and knowing how you do that. Healthcare, our ability to really bring good, produced medication into rural communities. I see a lot of people really going in there to make sure that happens. This is huge. But also, one of the key things you have to really look at is even around renewable energies. There is a lot of financing that is going in on solar, mini grids, and small scale work that you're seeing a lot of financing coming in from from Europe or from America into that. That is something that you have to look at. But it's something also that we have to pay a lot of attention to. Education and capacity building. When you look at a continent, you look at how much we spend on education and the quality education people are not getting. Being able to really be able to look at it. And I'm not just talking about trying to educate people to have PhDs, but let's look at PhDs. Being able to do some of the vocational training so that people can get out today and get a job the next week and the next day. That you start seeing a big resurgence of that, because not everybody wants to get a PhD. But you have to be able to take young people with vocational training and really drive them to be job ready the next day. If you can do that, you are going to still see a huge, not just impact on one side, but also return on investment there. And it's still being able to translate that. And with the huge impact of technologies today, a lot of young people can really be able to provide world-class capacity building, training, development through apps, through different kind of technologies that we have access to that our parents never had. And so you could still see how you could be able to do that and spin that up and really work it well. So it is possible. So there is a lot. And again, Megan, feel free to share my email address with more specific questions. Everything will definitely be able to respond to and really guide people on different things, and even maybe do some introductions with other people with sectors that we are familiar with, so that they can get a lot more. But I think this is a big opportunity and a big different generation. I've seen people, especially some of the people we have at the chamber, that went from zero to a lot of people who were the first in their family to go to college, the first in their family to graduate from school, to become multi-millionaires, not in Europe, but in Africa, being able to do the big things in this continent. It is possible, and most of them are under 40.
Okay, thank you. That's I'm happy that you touched on that, because that leads me to my next question. You might be aware, before the workshop, we had a webinar addressing West Africa's youth unemployment issues. And one of the issues that was brought up was that in Africa, in general, compared to other parts of the world, we don't have a legacy of building businesses, enterprises that are generational. So what advice would you give to us young people to create businesses that can create generational wealth, that can last for generations and generations and generations? Because we don't see that. It's not that they let's say our grandfathers or fathers did not start, but for whatever reason, they do not last for long. What advice would you give us young people to ensure that we break that curse and create businesses that can last for generations?
I didn't know I was coming here for very difficult questions, like
apologies.
That's a tough one.
Okay.
Truth of the matter is that it comes from culture, it comes from mindset, and it comes from our belief that also you're not the only one in the room.
Okay.
You need to have some humility to say, yes, I built it, but I got to pass it on to others. But also you have to know how to structure those businesses, that you have to bring the best people to run it and to make it successful. And then that legacy and the next generation takes it on. Generational wealth is so important. And that's what you've seen in most Western countries, and you've seen it in Asian countries right now, where they're going. Africans have to start moving that. And I think we have a problem with that, we have to admit. And that also comes with leadership. Sometimes you see many African leaders, when they get elected, whether it is president, they feel like it's their divine duty to stay there. So if you can't pass on something to the next generation, just look at how we act once we get in power. So it is something that we need to really address to see whether it is a cultural issue or it's a personal issue. I think also it's an issue where you need to have the humility to start saying that, you know, there are other people that can do it better than me, and I can be better when I move on. I went through it when I got our company listed in the stock exchange, doing well. Everybody, the partners got in, they are making money. But I said, yes, I built it. Yes, I'm the chair. Yes, I think I've done well, but I got to move on. And I don't want to move on when I am still, I ran my race, and I never wanted to be in there and say, they're going to push me out, or I don't feel like I'm performing at my best, or something. I've done my best, and like you young people will say, you drop a mic and you move on. And I think that succession planning is part of building that generational wealth, because the other issues that you see also that we have as a communities or as Africans sometimes is, how do you want? There is always that, how you look at the young people and you're saying, oh, these young ones, they're too fast, they're too smart. And it's not true. The thing is that it's a different rhythm that they move. You know, I was born in Cameroon. When I grew up as a kid, I listened to Makossa. It's not famous anymore. Today, everybody listens to Afrobeat and Amapiano. So get with the times. You have to be able to look at young people and create space for them to do different things. I mean, you can barely have dinner with 9 young people sitting around you on the table without each one of them talking to each other on that same table, but on WhatsApp and not having a conversation with each other. Hello, just accept it. It's a different kind of thing. But also, when you're young, you want to really work on that. You got to also be able to say, you know, you have to really see and understand also the other generation that is moving on, because sometimes your wokeness without woke is just mere self-indulgence. So it's not a bad thing to be woke, but sometimes woke might not go very well when you're trying to get an old man to pass on stuff to you and look at the next generation. But when you start building, you got to start knowing how long you want this thing to go. And it is really, really so critical when you look at that. You're saying, you know, I put it this way. I used to like basketball a lot. And one of my favorite players was Shaquille O'Neal. And I still like Shaq. You know, big guy, but he was doing marvelous things in the basketball. So it gave me some hope because, you know, I'm a fat guy. So he says that there's a place for fat guys in basketball. But one of the things that I always said when the first time I met Shaq, and we talked a lot about me admiring his game, and we talked about money. And I said, Shaq, you know what? The guy who paid your salary is wealthy. You are rich. And so what you got to do after your game has ended is that you need to really start working about being wealthy so you can pay the other guy's salary tomorrow and you can pay the next things. And that's what we need to look at, the difference between generational wealth and present riches. I think sometimes we tend to focus a lot on present riches, and you know, we want to show off for the gram and for the TikTok, but sometimes the gram and the TikTok can really be fake. I mean, I'm not the most good-looking guy in the world, but with AI, I could pass for a model, but that's still fake. So you got to really look at going this thing for quality and long term, and then you could see that, and that goes all into that aspect of you don't build generational wealth without planning. You got to plan for it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. For me, the final question that I wanted to ask you, it's more related to you. Can you pass on or share with us 3 lessons that you have learned or that you have acquired that has helped you to be successful, and 3 lessons that you have learned that has not worked for you that we can maybe try to adapt to our own business models, or maybe try to avoid when we're trying to start our businesses?
Well, I start with my failures. The first part is that know your brand and know who you work for and what you're trying to build. I had my first big slap in life when I was a baggage handler for UPS. They gave me a promotion on a Tuesday. I went out partying. I partied really hard, and I was supposed to sign the contract and send it to them by Friday, by the end of the week. So I did not, and so I realized I have not on Friday. So I signed the contract and I mailed the contract by FedEx. So so UPS got the letter I was delivered by FedEx. I was called in the office. I was fired. So I did not know my brand. I used a computer to send that mail. So you have to be very careful with that. It was a rude awakening and a big lesson I learned. And I think some of the failures that I've had in business is part of it was my first business. I had a first business at 16. I started a car washing business, didn't know anything about a plan, made a lot of money, but at the same time, never had planning, and I failed. And then went on to other businesses that were successful. But again, another failure that you have to, I've had that I still try to learn how to correct until today is always being able to really pay attention to your numbers. And that's why I always talk about being less bullish about passion to look at the numbers. On the success side, I don't manage money. I don't do money. One of the key things I always did was I always tried to hire the best accountant and I stay the heck out of the finance side. I like, yes, I do my checks, I do check the numbers, I do see everything, but I try to get the most competent people in the finance department, and that has worked really well. That has worked really well for me. Also, building the brand. It is so important to be able to build a brand around what you do. And that really was also something that really helped in everything. That helped me a lot with multiple businesses. The third part, as you asked, is having the right people. Like I said in the past, I wouldn't do this without the right kind of people that I've had to be able to really drive me. But lastly, I know you didn't ask for three. I'll give you a fourth one: mentorship. Mentorship is so important. And I always say it's not necessarily mentors that, I would reach out to this person to say, you mentor me, hold my hand, and you take me to the next level. Sometimes it gets so difficult, but being able to build a team around you that can help you. And those are your mentors. You don't need one. You need a lot of people that you can reach out. You'll be surprised until today, I still reach out to a lot of people I call mentors. They will guide me no matter how difficult the issues are. I never studied oil or gas or energy. I teach it today. I'm an expert at it. The majority of it, I had to learn from people. And it's never too hard to call people and be humble and say, listen, I'm trying to understand something about CO2 emissions. Can you walk me through it? Especially scientists, and these nerdy type scientists, they get really happy when you reach out to them and they have to teach you everything that they know. And same thing I did with the economics, but always willing to humble myself and sit down and learn about things that are really tough. And I'm not scared to say I don't know. I'm not scared to say I failed, because you know what? Failure is needed. Failure is needed. The real story is not about your failure. The real story is about your comeback. So what they say is setback is a setup for a comeback. I love comeback stories. And that's why this was so important for me personally, to sit back there and have this discussion. But also, I really wanted to extend a hand. 3 years ago, we put up $1 million to any African that was willing to do work in any kind of energy projects and all of that. But you know what was disappointing? We had only about 4 Africans apply for that funding. We ended up having more than 30 to 60 people apply coming from Europe or United States. But that challenge is still there. We are open from the chamber, which I lead right now, to say, reach out, no matter what. It's not over till you begin. You just need to start. If a little country boy like me can do it, I think you guys can do even better. And our continent needs you. Our continent needs good entrepreneurs that are going to really be able to drive Africa's future. Don't be ashamed to make money. Anybody who tells you that you shouldn't make money, you shouldn't make $1 billion, they're just jealous. Go out there and really shock the world with entrepreneurship, because that's the future. That's what Africa needs now more than ever.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ayuk. For me, that is all that I have. I will keep the floor open for 1 or 2 questions from our participants. Okay, on that note, I would like to thank you again very much. I know you're a very busy man, for you to take your time to be part of this workshop. And like you said, I will share your email address with anyone who might be interested in getting additional tips from you. And you mentioned one thing, you said get mentors. So I hope you're open to being a mentor to one or two of our participants, maybe myself. So
I will be open to mentoring, but what I always say, one of the conditions of me mentoring people is that they have to be ready to read. So I write a lot. I've published about 4 books. 2 of them are bestsellers in the United States. So I always tell young people, if you want mentorship, if you want to walk that road, I'm not going to teach you everything. I'm going to give you a book, and I'll buy 2 books. You have one. I read another one, and the same book, and we discuss it. That's part of it, because you got to do the hard work. There is no shortcut. You got to do the hard work. And I always say the best way when I mentor young people and start with them is that, you know what, let's do some reading. And this is not going to be no Kindle. It's going to be a book. It's going to be a book. We're going to read together. And if a guy who spends 16 to 18 hours a day walking, sleeping 4 or 5 hours every day, I think that if I can find the time to read a book and have to have a conversation with you, I think you can also find the time to read that book. And we need to really pay attention in reading. And it doesn't matter what you do, you read, because that stereotype that if you want to hide your money among Africans, put in the book, it needs to go. We are better people. We are, especially your generation. What you guys do is amazing. When I was your age, a lot of these young people, I was a mess. I was a mess. When I watch what you guys do, how you guys move, how smart you guys are, how much tools you guys have. Heck, I don't even know how to use TikTok. My wife tells me I got 1.2 million Instagram followers, and my wife tells me, like, you don't even do content. I'm like, what's content? And she's like, oh Lord, you old. So you guys have everything, man. But yes, I'm going to mentor, but it's going to be some work. We're going to work together because I want to learn from you just as I want you to learn from me.
So do you mind sharing us the name of those 2 books? Because let us start reading already before we reach out to
Well, the first one is called Billions at Play. I'm a capitalist. I like money. So I wrote a book about
Billions at Play.
Billions at Play, the future of Africa oil and gas. And I also wrote the most recent one. We recently sold more than 1.5 million copies. That is a Just Transition. Was published last year and has hit. Actually, it was so funny. We don't talk about our success sometimes. We beat Prince Harry on Wall Street Journal list. Don't worry, we like Prince Harry. He married his sister. He's all right. But we beat him on the Wall Street Journal for about 2 weeks. And so we love that. It's called A Just Transition, Making Energy Poverty History. And the first one was called Big Barrels, Africa Oil and Gas and Its Path to Prosperity. But, you know, it basically brings out stories that, especially Billions at Play, there is a path to prosperity. There's a lot of good stuff that can be done in Africa. And you saw young African entrepreneurs defying the odds, going out there and doing things. A lot of people that everybody counted them out. They really said there's success in Africa, they can build it, and they've had the grit to get up at 4, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning, and they moved. And they made it in this continent, and they are doing well. They are mentoring people. And so we profile those guys in our oil and gas stories while talking about bigger issues around the industry, but also discussing transparency and also dealing with something we don't like to deal with Africa, which I felt as entrepreneurs, we need to address those issues. Xenophobia. It's easy for somebody to fly into an African country, but an African can fly in an African country because we put visas and we put roadblocks everywhere. We tax young entrepreneurs too much in this continent, so it's already a roadblock. You set up a business, the government is asking you for taxes the next minute. Like, how you gonna breathe when you just starting? So we need to deal with those enabling environment issues and transparency issues. Some of the mismanagement that comes from it affects young people and they don't even want to look at business. But the other thing which we try to address a lot in all my books is the role of women in Africa. I think it would be foolish to try to ignore 52 to 55% of our population and not really be able to really integrate them. I mean, women don't buy milk cheaper, women don't pay rent cheaper. But in my energy industry, it's so shameful, less than 8%. We get only about 8% of the industry is women. And you can't continue in Africa-wide, and where we look at entrepreneurship and even jobs, that women are still the last hired and the first fired across corporate Africa. So one of the key things that we like to do with the chamber is always making that path as a key path for advocacy work. And sometimes you're going to have to kick some doors, and sometimes you're going to have to really push to open these doors. But you should never be scared, because at the end of the day, if you're not on the table, you're going to be on the menu. So it's really important that we start really driving to have women on boards, so that when you go in that room, you're not just alone. So there's somebody advocating for you in the boardroom, even when you're not there. We have to really drive that issue. And I'm really passionate about this issue on women entrepreneurship, because I was raised by a single mother. My mom, everything I am, I owe it to her. And I wouldn't be where I am today without she teaching me and showing me a lot of things. So it's really important that we able to drive that and really be able to advocate women entrepreneurship, women in corporate Africa, but also address those issues that really stifle and hold back women entrepreneurship. Things we don't talk about Africa, those taboos like sexual harassment and issues, and the issues about women coming back to work after maternity, or some of the comments that are made by men at work about sexuality and all of that kind of stuff. That those days are over. We need to move on and really be able to really deal with those issues and make workplaces more comfortable and make entrepreneurship more comfortable, that when someone goes to ask for money, they're not being sexualized or being seen differently. If you don't address those issues, then you go on those barriers issues, those enabling environment issues. It becomes, then we don't build our true promise to reach that Africa that we deserve. All this promise about Africa rising would never happen when we are still holding back on 52% of its population that are women in our continent. If we address those issues, then you're going to see a lot more going well. Yesterday, I was speaking at a graduation commencement in Switzerland. The majority of the class were women. 70% were women. Why can't we replicate that in Africa? So I know this is about entrepreneurship, but I think this issue is very, very important as we move on entrepreneurship and doing business. We need to do that while breaking down barriers and breaking down our own glass ceiling in Africa. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much. It's very important. I believe that women make for all the useful information, for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your experience with us, and taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today. And I look forward to engaging you more.
You have me on WhatsApp, so reach out. I have only one WhatsApp number, so
okay.
If you say I can't reach you, then that would be a lie. You know, I have one WhatsApp number. I don't carry two phones. Okay. I do my best to respond to every WhatsApp, and that's what I've always done. I've had the same number for 30 years. I'm not changing it.
Thank you again so much, and thank you to our participants. I wish you all a wonderful day. For us here, it's almost lunchtime, so bon appetit to everybody. And thank you again very much, Mr. Ayuk.
Thank you. It's an honor. God bless you.
Thanks. Bye.
We are EBID. EBID, transforming ECOWAS communities. We have more information for you at www.bidc-ebid.org.